Well, it's time now for our Entre Nous segment. Today we're focusing on reading as France celebrates its 10th edition of Les Nuits de la Lecture, or Reading Nights. For more on this, Solange Megin joins us. Solange, good to have you with us. What exactly is Nuits de la Lecture, and where's the event held?
Well, it's basically a bonanza of literature, or a reading fest, you could call it. There are 8,500 different events. Most are in France, but like other more known traditions like Fête de la Musique or Nuit Blanche, they are also held abroad, these events. Some 30 countries are celebrating these reading nights, with the theme this year being the city and the country, or ville campagne. And for the first time ever, actually, the events are over 5 different nights rather than the usual 4, or from January 21st to the 25th. And the idea is to promote pleasure reading of all sorts, out loud, silently, together in bookstores, in libraries, but also in unexpected places like commuter trains or nightclubs even. There are open mics, DJ sets with literature, family writing workshops, plays where the audience is the main character.
Who wants to escape by the tunnel? A book is not just the stereotype of a person sitting in a chair. We wanted to show that it can be something that's alive. We personify it as actors and have the audience participate too.
And Solange, how is our relationship when it comes to reading, both here in France and globally, if you will?
Well, this is one of those things where you can either look at the glass half empty or look at it half full. Reading numbers and levels, they are down in France, the UK, the US, and many, many other nations. For example, one study by the University of Florida and UC London found that pleasure reading dropped by some 40% over the past decade, or a 3% drop, a decline every year. But at the same time, how people read, this is the glass half full bit, how people read, say on their phones, on their e-readers, or listening to audiobooks, and all of that is shifting, and in some cases actually increasing. And I'll get into studies of whether listening to books is actually reading or if it is cheating in 1 second. But first, the rather alarming figures. France's CNL, or the Centre National du Livre, does a biannual study on reading habits here. And in 2025, they found that only 45% of French people read online or on paper. That is every day, only 45% every day. And some 63% said they read fewer than 5 books had read 5 books over the past year. That's 6% less than the previous study 2 years prior. So French people are reading less, especially older French people, the 50 to 65-year-old range. They were the big décrocheurs, or those who are abandoning their reading for, say, their screens and TVs. Nonetheless, when it comes to European comparisons, the French are not at the bottom of the pleasure reading list, with their average of 18 books per year that are read. This is 4 less than 2 years ago. If we take the EU's stats on this, France is in 10th place, with Luxembourg having the highest share of book readers at 75%, and Romania at the bottom with only 29%. Now, that study, it is declarative like a lot of reading studies, but it also gives a big up to women. It found that more women in the EU read for pleasure, with 60% of women saying they do so compared to 44% of men.
Really interesting figures there, Solange. So walk us through the effect that this drop in reading actually has on society. What's the impact there?
Well, this is a vast question that scholars are looking into. Be it, for example, how AI is changing things as it provides answers, but it doesn't necessarily help with the habits of synthesizing, analyzing, and even greater empathy that a reading can provide. Now, this could have a big effect also on the workforce skills that people have, and, for example, on people's political views. The Economist has a very interesting article on this from last September, and it asks, is the decline of reading making politics dumber? And in that piece, it shows that in history, an increase in literary sophistication has actually led to increased political thought. It says that the fear among scholars is if you lose the ability to read complex prose, you might also lose the ability to think complex ideas. or to see nuance, or hold multiple contradictory thoughts at once. Now, the article also shows that not only are people reading less, but the books that many people read, in this case New York Times bestsellers, they are getting simpler. The Economist found that the sentence length of those books has shrunk by a third since the 1930s. Now, you could argue that short sentences and simple writing is a great thing too, but the complex, critical thinking needs to be there as well.
That's all very interesting stuff. This question I've often asked myself, audiobooks, is it really reading?
Well, that is the million-dollar question in this growing industry. The perception among many is that it does not count. An NPR Ipsos poll found that 41% of adults do not believe that listening to an audiobook counts as reading. But, and this I have to admit, my disclaimer, this comes from someone who reads a lot of audiobooks. I am biased about this, and studies also beg to differ. It all depends on how well you concentrate. A 2019 study by UC Berkeley found that focused listening lit up the same neurological networks in the brain as reading it as text. But other studies have shown that there are some subtle, small differences about inference or about interpreting a character's feelings, giving the text a slight advantage over voice narration. But in a world where people are reading less overall and to a great degree, and where it is proven that reading for pleasure is not only good for, say, a child's test scores, but also for our physical and mental health as adults, avid readers do live longer and for a whole slew of reasons. So in this world, whether by ear or by eye, it is all about choosing what works for your brain and getting those books in.
Absolutely. I do agree with you, Solange. I think it depends how well you're concentrating. If your mind's wandering off, then the question is, are you really reading at all? In any case, really great questions there. Thank you very much for our Entre Nous segment. Of course, to our viewers, you can check out Entre Nous on our website at france24.com.